The other thing to begin to take a look at as we start to move towards the end of this conversation is follow the money. Follow the money. So in 1997, according to the National Association of Dental Plans, here was the distribution of the dental dollar. Government was at 5%, purchaser payer was at 46%, out-of-pocket was 49%. In 2005, the government moved up to 8%, the purchaser and payer went to 46%, out-of-pocket went to 46%. In 2010, the government is now up to 12% of the dental bill. The purchaser is paying 46%, the payer is managing that, and the out-of-pocket is 42%. So the economics have changed. And when you take a look, ultimately, you follow the money. That's what Tom McGuire said, follow the money. So in the past, there was the provider and the patient. And then there was the payer and the plan, and there was the purchaser. And the provider could have been a whole host of things out in the east side here. It's mostly solo. There's one or two groups, but all these other formations are providers. Then there is the patient, and that can come as an individual or as a group subscriber. And in the case of a specialist, it's the end user. And the way it used to, the payer plan is the insurance company, and the purchaser is, well, you've got Intel, you've got Adobe, you've got Microsoft, you've got Boeing. You have unions, you have affiliations. And when you went into practice, how it went was the provider was the driver, the patient was the decision maker, and the payer plan was passive, and the purchaser in the plan was also passive, and the axis of power went like that. Yes? That's the way it went. What has occurred because of this change in economics is that the provider is not, and the patient is no longer the driving force, but the driving force has become the purchaser and the payer. Yes? And so the driver has become more passive, the patient has become more passive in the equation, and the payer and the plan become the decision maker, as you see with Delta, and the purchaser has moved to become the driver. So there are these changes that are occurring in your system, and you have to adapt your practice to make it in this system. The way out is through. So by holding on to what you've got in the past, I don't think is going to get you to the future. Now, when I work with people, I look at a number of various elements of the way people operate. And some of the dentists I work with start at the level of me. Some of them get to me and you with a good front desk. Most of you in this, by the way, you guys are all successful. So most of you have reached a plateau in terms of your practice, in terms of your management, in terms of your leadership, in terms of your ownership, where you are at us. You've got a team of people. You do pretty well with that. But when you get to the level of we, you know, the larger entity, there's a significant weakness. I was involved in a lot of MSOs in the 90s, and the 6 that I was consulting all failed. Because dentists couldn't figure out how to work together to make it work at the level of we. The highest they could get in their thought process was the level of us. And that's going to need to change. And when I said to you in the beginning of this talk that you need to consider, are you willing to change in order to achieve the kind of actions that are going to be required to be successful in the future, this is one of the fundamental changes you're going to have to make. You're going to have to think we. You do not think we. The executives that you'll be competing against in these corporate entities and these large group practices think we. If you only think me, you're not going to get there. If you think me and you, you're going to be restricted. If you think us where you currently are, it's not going to get you to the promised land because you're going to be competing with people who know how to think we. Most dentists are risk adverse. Your competitors are risk bearing better than you are. They're willing to put out $350 million for an entity. Are you willing to put a check in, a significant check in to change your future? Are you willing to become capitalists? Are you willing to take those risks? I can tell by your faces that it's going to not be easy. You're change resistant. You don't want to change what you've got. You want to ensure what you've got to its continuum. But executives are more change accepting. Dentists think if. Executives think when. You don't hire someone and say, when are you leaving? You don't even think that. I hope she doesn't get pregnant. I hope her husband doesn't move. I hope. They're leaving. How many of you have had more than one front desk? Raise your hand proudly. 2. Keep them up. Oh, let's do assistants. They go much faster. People leave. When? When you go into a corporation, they have training manuals, they have cross-training, they know people are leaving. You don't think people are leaving. They're leaving. Bye. And then you're always shocked. What do you mean you're going? Well, I found a better job down the street for $1.50 an hour. Well, then you go home and you scribble on your sheet and you see if you can make the money. How many people are cross-trained in your office? How many interviews have you done in the last 6 weeks about, just to keep your interview skills going? You're competing with executives who are doing this, who are finding the best employees because they are sharpening their skills and they're paying them good money. You live in a small business culture. I'm doing our annual mastery conference in Phoenix in March is about culture, because we need to begin to really take a serious look at culture and its impact on every business, whether it be small or large. But a corporate culture really has power. How many of you buy Zappos shoes? Do you buy Zappos shoes? Young lady, do you buy? Yeah. No. Well, Zappos is a shoe seller. And it's $1 billion company. And it's $1 billion company because it's got an extraordinarily powerful culture. When was the last time you worked on your culture of your practice? When was the last time you did a retreat and looked at your culture, at your values, at your mission, at your purpose, at the things that these guys do that you don't do? They're doing that. Most of us, and I know that it was true for me, come from a mindset as a surgeon. Let's fix it now. Let's get it done. Let's get it over with. Whereas, an executive thinks from process, not fix it now. In terms of your business models, in terms of how you do business, it's good enough. As long as I'm making my personal income, I'm able to make my nut, and I'm able to fund my retirement fund, it's good enough. But the executives that you'll be competing with, good enough never is. Most of you create a business to give yourself a good job, to pay yourself well. Very few of you create a business to have a great business. That's who you'll be competing against. If you've read the books that we read or recommend to our clients, like Good to Great and Built to Last, and those major books by Collins, companies, the best one is How the Mighty Fall, by the way, by Collins. It's a great book. Businesses that create a great business to have a great business, not to pay themselves well, succeed. Are you working on your practice to have a great practice that you can leave a legacy, transition, or replicate, or make sure that it is able to be incorporated into a larger mass? You're technically driven, which is fine. That's what you love to do. But an executive is organizationally driven. So it changes the way they look at what you do and how you do it. You mostly talk about what you don't want to do, what you don't want, and what an executive talks about is what they want. So there's a different mindset that you'll be up against in terms of your future competition. Instead of trying to do what winners are doing now, you need to look 5 to 10 years in the future and see what the winners will be doing and then get there before they do. Where are you going to be in 5 years? What's your practice going to look like in 5 years? What are you going to do as a pedodontist in 5 years? How big does your practice need to be? So let's ask ourselves some strategic questions and let's see how you do. Okay, so what customers do you serve today? Who are your customers? What customers will you be serving in the future? Would it be interesting if you had a different customer base than you currently have? So these are the questions that when you go to business school, these are the questions you get asked when you do case study. This is how they go through it. What channels do you reach your customers today? What channels will you use to get to your customers in the future? I'm sure you have a website. How many people have websites here? Great. How many do search engine optimization? How many are doing Facebook? All that stuff, right? So customers are coming through other channels, yes? Okay. Okay. And so the access is changing for your customers to find you. So what channels will we be using in the future? Now, if I'm a large corporation and I'm funded for $350 million and I can bring in all kinds of power to my Facebook, my internet, my Yelp, and now my new Google Plus, which is pretty cool, by the way, which we need to talk about. Where are you going to find the time or the money to compete with that? What services do you provide today? And what services will you provide in the future? It may be totally different. How do you deliver and get reimbursed for your dentistry today? It's probably, here's our cash, I'm going to pay for it. How you get reimbursed in the future might be different. So you have strategic questions that you could engage in that would give you access to the future that you have not yet looked at. What can you sell your practice for today, and what can you sell it for in the future? The asset value of solo practices are decreasing. Will's in pretty good shape because he's got 3 guys. Right? Got 2 other guys? 1 girl. You better hurry up. Okay, that's it? You have 1 associate? One partner? Oh, you have 2. Would I say guys? Oh, I'm sorry. So yes, okay, it's okay. Okay, I'm fine. I'm fine to be corrected. It's not a problem for me. So you have 2 so that you're basing your share value on someone replacing you. Are you the oldest in the practice? By far. So you're hoping that another periodontist will come in and buy you out and that your share value of those 3 will go up? I have no idea. Okay, great, exactly. Do you have an idea of what you can sell? When you take a look at the market, the transition consultants are telling you to sell, but if you take a look at asset value, it's decreasing. You will not be able to sell your practice for 70% of gross because your gross is diminishing. Now, there are companies out there that are buying practices at a much higher cost factor than you or could sell it privately to another person. And that will become a consideration for you guys. Who is your competition today? And who will your competition be in the future? We've shown you some of those things tonight. And then what are your answers to this? What are your answers to these strategic questions about the future, about your business, and how you'll design your business to win into this new future?